Hello, everyone. Welcome to Zippy Zoomers, our presentation. The reason we chose the name Zippy Zoomers is because we've decided to evaluate and just give some examples of how the STEM field has expanded or improved the field of travel. Whether that travel is, you know, boats, planes, trains, automobile, doesn't really matter. We just did some examples to show you how the STEM field, science, engineering, technology, and math, has improved these travel fields. We want to start off with discussing Sir Isaac Newton because the laws of motion is pretty important in travel, right? So you want to move as efficiently as you can with the least amount of energy expelled as possible to make the movement efficient. Sir Isaac Newton discovered the laws of motion pretty much, the first law being the law of inertia. The second law he claimed is speed, in which an object will move or begin to move, or if an external push is provided. The third law Isaac Newton states is the forces of lift and thrust. The third law is where airplanes come in pretty much. Um, Airplanes need lift and thrust in order to move through the sky. The lift in order to keep it elevated, and thrust to move it forward, right? Okay, airplane evolution. This is a depiction that the world famous Leonardo da Vinci made. I'm pretty sure everyone know who Da Vinci is, but this is one of his examples where he was researching the flight of birds and designed several flying machines to try to mimic that flight. He also built a bunch of gliders in order to achieve that flight as well. Airplane evolution, the powered propelled aircraft. George Carter is one of the most important, as I've already stated, right? He did several gliders. This picture here is just one example of one of his gliders. I think one of the most popular American flyers, if not in the world, would be the Wright brothers. The Wright brothers was credited with the first successful flight. This was in 1903, December 17th. They built, as you see, a long fixed wing glider, and they went ahead and had at it. In 1903, it was called the first sustained and controlled flight. The flight lasted about 39 minutes, and they flew over 38 kilometers with large tanks. All right. Okay, so now we're going to get into how the war, World War One in particular, has brought innovation to the aircraft industry, aircraft motor travel itself. All right. So the First World War led to more focus on the development of aircrafts. This brought us the propeller-based technology, along with a larger aircraft that has more range and speed. Though many governments were heavily engaged in creating a reliable and sufficient aircrafts, Italy was the first in flight. The picture to the lower right, the J-1 Junker aircraft, which is the first aircraft to have a full metal body and set the precedence of the planes as we know it today. During the war, various companies around the world started looking into the beginning of passenger airline flights. In 1914, the first passenger airline flight was created. It was simply a trip from St. Pete, Florida to Tampa, Florida. Although this was only a 2-minute flight, this was a huge milestone, you know, to have people fly from one place to another place and people can charge them money. Oh, we live in a capitalistic society, so people are all over that. Okay, so in this picture, you see this plane on the water. It's called a Douglas DC-3. You know, it was consistent, it was profitable, easily to manufacture. Um, it improved the range, reliability, and speed. You know, so after the World Wars, the Douglas DC made it possible to fly passengers from place to place. It would hold about 32 passengers, and if they had beds on board for comfort, it would hold about 14 passengers. So you can just see the small increments and improvement that STEM has contributed to the airline industry. All right, so next we're going to talk about the next major improvement, next major advance. The next major advance in aircrafts were jet engines, of course. They began to innovate starting in 1930, but the first operational aircraft was a German Heinkel HE-178 in 1939. This saw military service and was discontinued in 1949 because it had problems. The first jet passenger aircraft saw flight in 1952. This was the de Havilland Comet. The aircraft had major issues, but of course they didn't stop. They continued to innovate, and the Comet 4 was the aircraft where all of the major issues were resolved with the Havilland Comet. All right, so ever since the Comet, you know, man has always been trying to fly faster, farther, higher, all that good stuff. So new technology is on the horizon. Aircraft companies been working to innovate and look and find better ways to fly, gaining power. They're trying to do this from batteries, which is pretty much not sustainable right now. But the industry as a whole can go anywhere. We need just more efficient engines or whatnot to bring this reality about. And that is pretty much the aircraft portion of our presentation. There should be a link on the next slide to watch the automobile portion of our presentation. Thank you. Hello, folks. Hello, folks. My name is Burgess. I would like to welcome you to my portion of the presentation. It is the group Zippy Zoomers, and we're doing a presentation on how science, technology, engineering, and math have improved the travel industry. Whether it's bus, plane, train, you know, automobile, that's what we're going to try to bring to you guys. I hope you enjoy. Once again, welcome. Thank you for attending the class or the presentation. So, like I said, my portion of this is going to be on automobiles. We can sit back and look and think about, you know, how cars have progressed throughout the history of time, right? So, one of the most iconic cars that, you know, we really know of is probably the Model T. The Model T was um, instituted by a guy by the name of Henry Ford. He gets the credit for it. He also gets the credit for having what he wanted to call the world's first universal car. So this car could be manufactured on a large scale. I know a lot of people think it was the first car, but it's not actually the first car. It was just the first mass produced car. There were a couple cars out before it, but that's neither here nor there. Uh, a good note, Henry Ford was good friends with George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver gave him the idea for the plant. That's why they named it the plant. He was a world-renowned botanist. He said he could talk to flowers and they talk back to him. So we're going to move on to our next slide. This is also a car, but it is a lot more advanced than the Model T. This car here is a Tesla. This car was named, well, the company was named for a famous inventor. I think he was around in the 30s. He was a famous inventor by the name of Nikola Tesla, one of my favorite inventors. And I am impressed that they named this car after him. He did some work with electricity where he did what's called the Tesla coil. That's a pretty popular item. Nikola Tesla also did some work with Tesla towers, I believe they were called, to try to find free energy. But here we have the Tesla. So we're going to kind of go through and give a little background on these vehicles. So the Ford Model T, it came out in 1908. The Model T was introduced as, Henry Ford wanted to make a simple, durable, affordable car that pretty much everyone at the time could afford. It was to try to get more people into driving automobiles versus the horse and carriage and buggy and all that good stuff. One thing I learned that I didn't know, Tesla's first car was in 2008, but it wasn't really like a mass produced car. It was a roadster. I don't know why I don't remember that. I think I might have been in Iraq, maybe. However, Tesla's flagship car is their Model S. Um, the Model S is to be marketed as the family sedan, so to say, um, in today's world. You take a moment to read over the slides. I'll give you a moment, and we're going to progress forward. So, when starting the Model T, there were a series of about 12 steps, which involve you put the little crank handle in and crank the car up to give it some potential energy. And you finish the whole process by hitting a little igniter. It was not on the inside. But starting that car wasn't very reliable, just because of all of the working parts involved. But it was a keyless start, just like the keyless start for the Tesla car. Tesla, pretty much, when you buy the car, they give you a card, like a credit card that you can put into your wallet. And that just basically lets the car know to deactivate the security system and power up when that key is in proximity, so you can go ahead and get it started and all that good stuff. So here are some improvements that STEM has made from one car to the other car. We normally ask how fast does the car get from 0 to 60. Well, the Ford Model T never hit 60. Its max was about 42 miles an hour, versus the Tesla, where its max speed is somewhere around 150, 155 miles an hour. Next, security features, right? Safety features, I mean. Did the Ford Model T come with seat belts? I found no record of it, right? But the Tesla, of course, comes with seat belts. It have your airbags and all that good stuff. So if you get into a wreck, they try to minimize the loss of life as much as possible. And this is very important because our next slide, you know, our next column, we're going to go ahead and go into how far could one of these vehicles travel. The Ford Model T traveled anywhere from 20 to 40 miles an hour. Miles total on a tank of gas. The Tesla can travel about 405 miles on one charge. Uh, Other similarities that the car have, there were five passenger vehicles, but if I'm not mistaken, the fifth passenger for the Tesla would sit in the back on like where the wheel well were. So these are just some things that I want to come through and show and note to you guys how STEM has improved the industry. I've already went over my time. I'm at pretty much 7 minutes. I don't want to take all of your time, but I appreciate your time. I done said time too many times. So thank you and goodbye.